Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Travel Collective where we try to showcase different places to go and interact with small boutique companies and people that really know where their place and can share great information. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, good morning.
So tell us about your company is Cuban Adventures, correct?
Yep.
So what inspired you to start it? What was the impetus?
Well, actually, I didn't start it, but the founder of Cuban Adventures, he started off as a guide in Latin America, working for another company, and he just fell in love with Cuba. He used to guide there, and he thought this is a place that offers something really unique to travelers, because there's not like the Louvre in France, or there's not these like big tourist attractions. It was all about the culture and interacting with the people. And so he saw that as something unique that he just wanted to specialize. So he opened his own company, I think going on 18 years ago.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And I came on board in 2014, um, as because I, as an American, had the experience of trying to figure out how I could get to Cuba and being kind of nervous about the US laws. And so I
Right.
had done a bunch of research, and I said, I ended up traveling with Cuban Adventures. And I fell in love with Cuba, and I ended up applying for a job there saying, like, look, let me help US travelers feel comfortable with Cuba, because a lot of people want to go, but it's just so taboo and they think it's illegal. And then the laws have changed over time, basically with every presidential administration. So it can be daunting. And I wanted to help people get past that so they can experience this wonderful island and the wonderful people.
I love that actually because I think for myself too, I'm really curious about Cuba, the food, the just the cities, the people, the culture. And you're right, there is this kind of, and I just as a photographer, I see all these visually interesting cities and time is kind of, it's the buildings, the history and everything and just the people. They take such great care of what they have. I mean, they have these beautiful cars that to me are like art. And I know for them it's a necessity, but they care for it so much. It means so much to them. But you're right, there's this hurdle. It's like it's like, how do we get there? What do we need to have? So share with us some of the first steps that a traveler might want to consider if they're thinking about going to Cuba.
Absolutely. So the first thing you need to do is just like you would do with any kind of trip, decide how you want to go. Decide your more or less your budget, because Cuba can be a very budget destination and it can be a luxury destination, although luxury, that's a bit different than we're used to. So once you've decided that, the next thing to do, I would recommend, is to contact a tour provider. Not that you need to be on a tour the whole time, but you absolutely should have a guide at least part of the time for the best experience. Why? Because Cuba is very complicated. Veteran travelers are perplexed and get confused and make some very avoidable mistakes because they feel like I can do this independently. I don't need help. I'm not a group trip person. And so they just issue all professional advice and they get themselves into inconvenient situations, say, because Cuba is a very safe place to travel. So if you decide you want to go on a group tour, I would reach out to that group tour company like ours. Or if you decide you just want to do, a day with a guide to get you acclimated to the culture and the situation, then reach out to that tour and figure out what they have available. Or alternatively, you can go directly to finding a flight in the times that you need and then do that second step afterwards. So to fly to Cuba, all major US airlines will fly there. So Delta, United, JetBlue, Southwest, American, they all fly directly to Havana. And that's probably going to be the jump off point for most people. And in those flights, you'll get insurance that's mandatory to enter Cuba, and you can purchase the visa at the gate. So it's going to be at the airport, at the gate that departs. to Cuba, so I know that the visa is a little bit confusing for some people. It's not the same thing as a general license, which I can get into later if you're interested in. The visa is simply something you purchase that allows you to enter the country. So you either get it in Miami, in Newark, in Fort Lauderdale, in Houston, whatever place that you're traveling to Cuba from, not in your necessarily in your home airport. So, for example, I fly from Sacramento, California. So I would not get the visa in Sacramento. I would get it in Houston or Miami, wherever. But it's just as simple as going online to the airline's website and booking your flight. The tricky thing is there aren't a lot of third party ways to search. So if you're used to searching on Kayak or Expedia, they're not showing you flights to Cuba. Even Google Flights only shows limited flights to Cuba. And for some reason, they tend to show the Copa flights that take you through Panama. You don't have to go through Panama. You don't have to go through Mexico. Whether you do or you don't, it doesn't make a difference in the legality of your travel. It's just maybe it's more convenient for you, maybe it's cheaper. But I always find flying from California that United and American offer the best itineraries.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So do you lead groups then yourself, Sarah?
Nope, all of our guides are local guides, so they're Cubans living in Cuba. I used to chaperone some tours, so I have been on a lot of our tours, both as a tourist and as a chaperone. But I do not lead them. I don't have the expertise, and our local guides are wonderful. They speak excellent English. They tell you about about the historical facts, but also just what it's like to live in Cuba. And a lot of times they take people to meet their families, meet their friends.
Oh.
So it's a really nice personal experience.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And what are some of the group sizes that you put together?
So for we have two types of tours. One type are what we call our support for the Cuban people tours or SCP tours, and those are specially designed for US travelers. So they include the full itinerary that you would need to meet the rules for legal travel. And the US is the one that sets these rules and enforces or doesn't enforce the rules. It has nothing to do with the Cuban government.
Oh,
So
wow.
once you're in Cuba, Americans aren't treated differently, except that a lot of times locals are excited when they find out you're from the US because they're not, they might not be used to getting a lot of US visitors, but in terms of the laws, it's all on the US side. So we offer these tours that are designed for US travelers, or we offer other tours that are for people from all over the world, including the US travelers. In this conversation, I'll stick to the ones designed for
Yeah.
US travelers because those ones are the easiest. So for those ones, we have max group size of 12 people and a minimum of two.
Nice. So about how long are these trips?
We have them as short as a weekend. We have our Havana weekend tour, which is 4 or 5 days. So you can do an add-on trip to Vinales, which is an amazing rural destination tobacco country. Or you can keep it at 4 days, and it's I think Thursday, Monday. Or we have our 9 day, which is the one that I recommend as a good starter tour because it takes you to think 4 different provinces so you can
Oh,
see the
wow.
diversity of Cuba. Mm-hmm. It's a really great, just kind of sampler, and it's pretty steady paced because Cuba is quite a large island. Another
Yeah.
thing people don't necessarily realize, you're not getting anywhere very quickly, but that one is, I think, the good starter, one of our most popular tours. And then we offer a 15-day
Oh,
tour, so if
wow.
you have a little extra time, maybe teachers on summer break, you can see the whole island in 15 days. And that is a remarkable experience. I love Eastern Cuba. It's got very different culture and culinary style.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's a lot of bus time.
Yeah, you're right, because Cuba is a big place. And the
Yeah.
topography, talk to us a little bit about, because I imagine with an island you have some beaches, but are there mountains? Are there waterfalls? I mean,
Mhm. Yeah. So let's take, for example, the 9 day tour. On the 9 day tour, you're going to go from Havana, which is big cosmopolitan city, but which has beaches just a short, 20, 30-minute taxi ride away that has beautiful beaches. So you have that. Then you go to Vinales, which also, because it's an island that's kind of a
Yeah.
narrow shape, you have beach close to pretty much everything. But Vinales is these pincushion hills, kind of like you see in Vietnam, I think, like these massive pincushion hills, these like lush green valleys, organic farms. Then you go south to Cienfuegos, which is on the southern coast. So that's a coastal city that has like a bay and a like a the word is escaping me, but it's called a malecon. It's a seawall that
Okay,
you
right.
kind of like a promenade. And then to Trinidad, which is around Cienfuegos in Trinidad, you have a mountain range. It's called the Sierra de las Escambres mountain range. So if you like mountains, it's very accessible from there. You can do trekking, you can do hiking, camping,
Oh, wow.
all of that stuff you can do there. And then of course you have the beach on the other side. So on that tour, for example, you would like go to the mountain range and hike to a waterfall. But depending on your interests, if it's nature or if it's beach or if it's city, Cuba has it all and it's all very accessible.
Are there favorite times of year that travelers should consider going to Cuba?
Definitely. So hurricane season runs from June to November. So if that's something that's really a concern to you, maybe stay away from Cuba in those times. I will, however, say that we run tours all year long because Cuba has an excellent early warning system, and we're always just able to divert the groups to keep them safe. And it ends up, being a change in itinerary, but doesn't really detract from the enjoyment of being in Cuba. So as long as you're not like super worried about the hurricanes, just go when you can. But my favorite time to go is November, which is at the tail end of hurricane season. But I've always had like lovely weather and it's not too hot. And then between December and April, the weather is usually pretty good. May starts rainy season, and
Oh,
every time I've been in May, it's been very rainy. So November through April are my favorite times.
yeah. Are travelers on these tours able to participate in things like the music and some of the other cultural? Talk a little bit about some of the activities.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, music is everywhere. It's not avoidable really. You don't have to go far. So travelers can take advantage of their free time to go see live bands. There's places that are especially known for the music where we encourage people to experience them. So, for example, Casa de la Música in Trinidad is an outdoor venue. They have excellent live bands, and it's a bunch of locals and tourists that listen to music and dance. We also have a salsa lesson included on the tour. So people can, either you've never danced salsa before, it's a great time to start. If you're experienced, you will be, that will be accommodated so that you're learning the Cuban style of salsa. Um, Other than that, just like for example, Old Havana, just walking through the streets in the middle of the day, you're going to hear music coming from all these different venues, and you just pop in, have a drink, we have some food, and listen to like, the music is just excellent there.
Yeah.
So you'll have all the opportunity. You can take percussion lessons as
Oh,
well.
wow.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, that sounds fabulous. So, what are some items that travelers should pack if they're going to go to Cuba? Are there certain things they might want to think about packing?
That's a good question because Cuba is a place where if you don't bring it, you might not find it. So I recommend people bring a good first aid medical kit. even including prescription antibiotics. So if you call your doctor and tell them you're traveling, they'll prescribe to you Z-Pak or antibiotic. But definitely stuff for headaches, stomach aches, because the pharmacy shelves are unfortunately empty. There is a scarcity of medical supplies there, so you need to bring everything that you think of. I personally recommend you also bring an ace bandage because as someone who has sprained her ankle a few times in Cuba, uh, I always wish I had a good quality elastic bandage, which doesn't take up.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely want to bring mosquito repellent, sunblock. Again, these are things that you might not be able to. So I kind of like take the mentality that I'm camping essentially.
No, that's probably good.
So that way I bring everything I need. And then, of course, you're gonna have a comfortable room with linens and pillows and soap and not shampoo generally. Those are those toiletries, those personal items, your feminine products, very important to bring. And then whatever you don't use, it's nice to leave behind.
Oh, that's actually a great tip too, because then you have room in your suitcase to bring things back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And are Americans allowed to bring certain things back? Are there restrictions? Because as you said, the rules are really on the American side. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So you cannot bring back alcohol or tobacco anymore. So a lot of people think that they can still bring it back, but unfortunately, in the last administration and the current administration, they have said no alcohol, no tobacco. So you have to enjoy it while you're in Cuba. That's it. That's the only limitations. The rest is just subject to normal customs limitations for any country.
so that would include, yeah. So for people like no Cuban cigars, they need to, because that could cause a process, a hassle thing for them to get back into the States, I imagine.
Yeah. So it usually, if you bring something and you get caught, they throw it in the trash. It doesn't normally, it's not normally more serious than that. Unfortunately, a lot of customs agents don't know what the Cuba rules are,
Okay.
interestingly enough, and that makes it a little bit weird. But you're not allowed to bring tobacco of any kind, not cigarettes, not cigars. You're not allowed to bring alcohol of any kind, not rum, which if you're a rum drinker, Cuba has the most delicious rum.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's so good. I love it. Fortunately, I have some bottles that I brought home before the rules changed, but
Right? Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but it's no problem enjoying it while you're in Cuba.
So are there certain foods that you recommend for travelers from America that are kind of authentic Cuban dishes that travelers should try at least once?
Yeah. So one thing people don't realize is that Cuban food is not Miami Cuban food. There's a very vast difference between the resources of Cuba and the resources of the United States. So you're not probably going to find a Cuban sandwich like you would get in, Tampa or Miami. But Cuban food is very simple, fresh, and delicious. You just have to know where to go, which is another reason why it's good to go with an expert because some people are like, oh, Cuban food is so bland, it's so overcooked. It's like you didn't know where to go. So one meal I highly recommend to people is the meal on the farm in Vinales. And
Oh,
that's going to be like all grown locally at that farm, just so fresh. And I'm a vegetarian. And so the preparation of the vegetarian dishes is so excellent. It's not like here have some like lettuce and carrots and
yeah, yeah.
but for meat eaters they usually roast a pig and so it's meant to be really delicious. I cannot speak from experience, but the other thing that's really popular local dish is ropa vieja, which is translates to old clothes. It's like basically shredded beef or pork mixed in like a tomato sauce with onions, and that's supposed to be really good. I like um, I like the restaurants in Havana that have kind of more like fusion foods.
Oh, okay.
For example, there's a really good like Asian fusion restaurant
Oh,
where you
interesting.
can get, yeah, and like tacos. You can get really good seafood. Oh, seafood
Oh.
lovers.
Oh.
It was a good place for seafood lovers. There's a restaurant that is right on a waterway, like a fishing port, has a beautiful view, and they just fresh catch and serve it up, and it's fantastic. So if you like to try different kinds of foods, Havana is a place that has very diverse restaurant selection, especially if you're vegan or vegetarian. And if you don't mind meat, then anything that's home prepared or prepared on the farm is going to be really good.
Wow, it sounds amazing. Some countries you hear about the water though. Is there an issue for travelers with drinking the water that's served in the restaurants? Because honestly, I just don't know.
Sure. So yeah, you don't want to drink the water in Cuba.
Okay.
If you're really cautious, then get your drinks without ice. The places that we take people on our tours are places that we trust,
Mm-hmm.
that we trust their hygiene standards. And so, you know, we're not so worried about that. But in general, you can eat the vegetables because they're all washed. Even Cubans don't really cook with like not filtered water. They usually boil
Oh.
water and cook that. So, but there's no such thing as free tap water in Cuba. It's always going to be bottled water. So we recommend for the environment that people bring a filtered water bottle.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, so that they're not using plastic waste. Like it's mind boggling the amount of water bottles used on a tour. And we try to minimize the environmental impact of tourism in Cuba. So,
Yeah, no, you're right when you think about that with a group and, several days and it being an island, just, what do it has to go somewhere, all this waste. So I agree.
yeah,
Bringing your own water, reusable water bottle is,
right. So on our tour, we provide water. We have jugs and we use a local company to filter the water. We totally trust the water, and then you can refill your bottle. Just, bring a normal bottle and
yeah,
refill. But, when people are on their own, say they come earlier, they stay later, then it's good to have that filtered water bottle too, because sometimes, as with anything in Cuba, sometimes water is perdida, it's lost, that you can't find it anywhere. So just saves you time from having to go search for water too.
right. Yeah, that's smart. Is there anything as far as customs or etiquette that travelers should be familiar with just out of courtesy to be respectful that we might not know about?
No, we have similar cultures. I mean, they're very warm people compared to, I think, at least where I live. And so they might, they greet with a kiss, not a full kiss, but kind of like a
Yeah.
weird kiss. Um, but I think that that's basically it. There are, women do get a lot of cat calls, and it is pretty innocent. And if you just like no, then they get the picture. I find that men there don't tend to be super aggressive, but they do like to show their appreciation for women. And so just affirm like no, or just, let it happen, move on. In terms of scams or like harassment in the streets, tourists in Havana in particular, in old Havana, tourists do get a lot of like people coming up and, hey friend, like
Yes.
you want to come to the salsa club? Do you want to uh buy cigars, which you don't want to buy on the street? Do you want to change money, which you shouldn't change with these people? Or they'll come up asking for soap and stuff like that. If you're with a guide, that's going to be minimal, if at all. But if you're on your own and you get that kind of attention, just a simple no, and then that should take care of it. Like people aren't super aggressive. They are mostly just, trying to get their hustle on.
Or
And
yeah.
if you say no, that should be enough. They're generally not like kind of grabbing you. And I can't think of anything else in terms of dress. Like if you're in a church or a professional place, then shoulders covered, legs covered. But other than that, Cubans tend to dress up.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, they tend to like, you know, care about their appearance and look really nice, but they don't expect that from anybody else. So you're pretty much good with whatever you're wearing, unless you're in a church, and then it's just being respectful.
No, that's good to point out though too. If you want to blend in a little bit more, it might, you can dress up a little, maybe not wear your jeans, just a nice packable dress with,
Yeah,
something to cover your shoulders or,
yeah,
an appropriate length. You'll be more comfortable, I would think too, potentially.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What are some things you would bring back as souvenirs then? Do you have suggestions for people that want to bring back something to remember their travels?
Yeah, so art is everywhere. Really good art because Cuba has an amazing abundance of talent
Oh,
there.
wow.
Yeah, and I think it's partially because of the education system that people are able to get like a good art education that's basically free or very low cost. So that's one of the things that I have brought back more than anything is art, and you can buy like nice tourist art for like $30, or you can get like really good art for I would say 300. The other thing is fashion in Havana.
Oh.
There's a few places where they will custom make dresses,
Oh,
or
wow.
yeah, or you can buy it off the rack, and those tend to be like 150 to $180. In terms of like cheaper souvenirs, let's see, I'm not a big shopper, so I don't know, but people buy like bracelets with made with like local seeds and stuff like that. But I would definitely say art is where it's at. Let's see. The other thing is embroidery in Trinidad. Embroidery and pottery are two big things that people buy. They have very nice like embroidered tablecloths and stuff like that that are quality made. So
Yeah, I think those hand arts, like you said, like local
yeah,
art,
handicrafts.
like local artists with a painting or something that speaks to you. I mean, then you're supporting a local artist and you're also, I mean, where are you going to get that? An original piece of art. I think that's
Exactly.
beautiful. Or a custom made piece of clothing. I mean, we just don't have that in many cities, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that those are wonderful recommendations. So,
So
and what?
I don't know, I was gonna say, but that's why you need to be bring plenty of cash because you can't pay with your credit card in most places. You can't pull money out of the ATM. You have to bring cash. It's a cash society. It's just how it's done. I know we're not necessarily used to bringing lots of cash, but especially as an American or as a U.S. citizen, your cards won't work there.
No, that's good to point out. And like you said, if you have cash, that's how it works, and just expect it and bring lots of it, have it broken down into smaller bills, which you can order that all ahead of time
Yeah,
in the States,
exactly.
which is super
Exactly.
important.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, wait. Hold on. No, you just bring US dollars.
Oh, is it? Is it the currency the same? You just bring US dollars? There's no.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a
Okay.
complicated situation, which I don't want to take up all your time talking about it. But basically, if you bring US dollars, you can use US dollars either to pay directly or to exchange.
Oh, okay. No, that's
Yeah,
good to know.
Cuban currency is not available outside of Cuba, nor would it have any value whatsoever. So, dollars and euros, if you have, or pounds, if that's what you have, but dollars work very well. So as
Okay.
long as they are clean, no tears, no writing, um, you can use those.
No, that's good to know. See, that's why we need to, need you, Sarah, to help people with their travels. I think that's where there is benefit in going with a group because I think you're really going to get a good firsthand experience into Cuba. And like you said, that mix of experiences of things that you might not find on your own, or, if you're by yourself, you're more worried about like, I'm by myself and, where to go and how to do things.
Yeah, yeah. Cuba is safe, but it is frustrating. It can be, and there's a lot of things that are going on right now, in part due to the pandemic and the history of U.S. Cuba relations that have really impacted the local situation. And so I would say this, like my complete honest advice, not just as a representative of
Yeah.
Cuban managers, is that not only is it beneficial to use a tour guide or a tour company, it's also beneficial to use one that specializes just in Cuba because the situation there is constantly changing and they can give you up to date information. And even for us, it's like, oh wait, what's going on now and why and this and that. So having that like assurance that there's going to be somebody to give you good advice, somebody to tell you that, oh, this currency is not even, it doesn't even exist anymore. Or
Right.
if you're just trying to research blogs, if they're like 3 months old, they're out of date. And so, yeah, that's why going with somebody who actually specializes in Cuba, who's accessible to you, so you ask questions, is really going to improve your chances of having a remarkable trip.
Right. And having that local guide that's like knows, they know the city, they know the town, they have connections there as far as transportation or where to stay, or like you
Yeah,
said, just to eat places. I mean, it's kind of the same a little bit in the United States. I mean, there's lots of local places to eat, but you can have a really great experience in a little strip mall, or it can just be horrible and bland and awful. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. It's always good to have a local friend. That's how I would prefer to travel anywhere.
yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. Even in the States, if I know someone that lives in that town, they're going to point me to the small local place that looks like nothing from the outside, but inside they're making amazing food. I think that's super
Exactly.
important.
Yeah, yeah. And it's good to have a mix too of like the tour, somebody who understands what tourists want or need, and then somebody who understands things from a local perspective. Because a lot of people in Cuba have never even, a lot of Cubans have never even traveled, they've never even been on an airplane. And so they wouldn't know how to necessarily navigate the airport. That's what I'm here for, right?
Right.
They will know how to navigate the island, and so having that mix, I think, is really beneficial. But that's, yeah, definitely something to the money situation, the US law situation. These are all things that can make it complicated, but they're actually a lot simpler than um, the other thing I wanted to mention is, we're used to staying in hotels and B&Bs are something that we, you know, book sometimes because it's popular, but in Cuba, it's pretty much the only way because of the US laws.
Oh,
If
okay.
you cannot stay in hotels, you have to stay in casa particulares. There's just a few hotels that US travelers can stay in, but most have to stay in bed and breakfast. And it's a wonderful experience. It can be anything from a family home that has a room that's been converted and licensed for tourists, or it can be a boutique hotel. So there's a lot of really luxurious bed and breakfast where people are paying $500 a night, and you're getting all these like fancy bath products and blah blah blah. But it you don't want to stay in a hotel. Aside from that, it's better for the local population. You're really supporting small business. You're supporting locals. It so happens that this is the U.S. law that has been imposed on us, but it is also something positive.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if it is really, if the money is going directly to the Cuban citizens that, serve you in these small places, then that is beneficial. And you are going to get a really probably unique experience. It's just working with you, Sarah, and like you said, having those conversations of what your expectations are so you can talk to the locals and say, yeah, well, this hotel or this boutique place to stay is like this, or this one.
Yeah.
Do some of them provide then breakfast, or is that always separate?
So on our tour, it's always provided. If you're on your own, most places will provide more in the provinces than in Havana, but they will provide breakfast usually between $5 and $7.
Oh, wow.
Um, and the eggs there are really good. I took my daughter there for spring break. She's 6 years old. She will not eat eggs at home, and she was asking for a second.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, yeah.
yeah, I don't know why.
You're
They're
like,
just really good. So breakfast is usually going to be eggs, bread, which is not bread that we're used to. It's like either a soft roll or a hard, like a toast.
mm-hmm.
Uh, Meats, like kind of like pressed lunch meat, fruit, lots of different kinds of fruit, and usually fruit juice, coffee. So my favorite, being that I don't eat meat, the fruits I just love. Excellent tropical fruits, and then the fruit juice is really, really good.
Oh, wow.
I haven't had so much guava in my life, but it's wonderful.
Wow.
So if you're looking for like, you know, the places that we stay in on our tour are standard. They're not the luxury end. We do have a tour that does include that, but at the standard places, you're not going to find things like cereals, oatmeal. It's not what they eat.
Right.
So every now and then you'll get a surprise treat like waffles or pancakes, but they're going to be made of different things and they're not going to be what you're used to. So I always tell people bring snacks, especially if you're vegetarian. Bring snacks if you like to eat certain things. Bring packets of oatmeal or whatever, because there's not a lot of variety, but it is very good.
That's great to point out. So, how do people find you, Sarah, and connect with you if they want to plan to join one of your upcoming tours and find out the dates and all of that?
So we do everything on a website. It's cubagrouptour.com. And you can see on there all of our tours. They are all available to US citizens. I think we have like 14 different tours.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. That's a lot, actually.
yeah. So they're all available for US citizens. And on each tour page, you can see the availability. We guarantee a tour with a minimum of 2 people. So if you're the first person to book on it, you just wait until another person joins. And the departure dates, the prices, the inclusions, they're all on the website, as well as a ton of information about traveling to Cuba.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous, Sarah. Thank you so much. It sounds so amazing, and I hope to go to Cuba someday.
Yeah, we hope you go too. I hope every American goes to Cuba because something you got to experience for yourself. Our countries have a very unique relationship, a unique history. And so I think that if you have any interest at all in culture, in history, in music, in cigars and rum, Cuba, or in old cars, that's another.
Yeah, I was gonna say the old cars.
Yeah, Cuba is an excellent place, or photography is super photogenic. So yeah, it's a wonderful place and it's pretty close. 45-minute flight off of from Miami. So
That's nothing. That is super close, really.
yeah, yeah,
And
they
I,
don't even serve you a drink.
oh
You're up
wow.
and you're down.
And I just always want to encourage people. I think when you go, no matter what you see or read in the papers or on the news, you need to go and interact with people. It really you opens your world. I mean, people are
Exactly.
people everywhere. I mean, they want to have happiness and they work, and when you see just I think Cubans are just resilient and joyful is what I get out of it. And
Absolutely. Yeah. Resourceful too. I mean, I have my life has changed because of visiting Cuba, and I've learned a lot about being pragmatic. I've learned a lot about being grateful. I've learned a lot about taking care of my belongings and
yeah.
not being so, use and toss. Um, I've learned a lot about patience. So it can be really transformative. I know quite a few people who have been transformed by it, who have had amazing experiences and kept relationships
Oh,
with the
wow.
local people. And for some people, it's just a fun vacation, and that's fine. But it has the potential, if you let it, to really impact.
So one more time, what's the website, Sarah?
It's cubagrouptour.com.
cubagrouptour.com. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for this. I'm super excited that you shared today. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. I hope to see you in Cuba someday.
Yeah.